Hi, you're watching Bookmarks with Jason, and today I'm going to be doing my reading wrap-up for the month of November. I had a pretty busy month, mainly because of the holiday season. Work was busy, and because I decided to create my own YouTube channel. Now, I normally average between 4 to 5 books a month, but I was only able to squeeze in 3 this time around, which is not bad considering I'm not a fast reader. I was looking for some good fall reads, and thankfully 3 of the books I read helped scratch that itch. The first one being book 2 in Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time series, The Great Hunt, which I also like to call a damn good hunt because this book was pretty damn good. Now, I read the first book in the Wheel of Time series earlier this year, and while I enjoyed it, it didn't quite sell me on the series, mainly because I couldn't really connect with the core cast of characters. Rand, for instance, wasn't a very likable protagonist, and sections of the story felt a bit repetitive, like they would go to one town or village, get chased out, and rinse and repeat. Book 2 was a massive improvement on every level. I like the way Jordan expands the world and further develops the characters. Rand, while still not quite likable, is a bit more interesting. We see him come to grips with his new sense of prestige, while also trying to grapple with his fear of being the Dragon Reborn. Egwene, who was a pretty naive and sheltered character in book 1, is put through the ringer. I knew she'd be going through some hardships in the story, but I wasn't expecting her to experience the sheer amount of brutality that she does. She really loses that sense of innocence, but grows to become more cunning and powerful. We continue to see Perrin grow into his wolf powers, and Mat is pretty much just Mat, until he does something interesting towards the end. Lan and Moiraine, who are my 2 favorite characters from book 1, are hardly in the story, but Jordan introduces some new interesting characters that help fill in for their absence. We get a closer look at the Aes Sedai and the different factions within that order, and Jordan adds in some other factions like the Seanchan, which further thickens the plot. The climax of this book was probably one of the best I've read in a fantasy novel, and if this climax was the end of this series, I would have been like... And this is just book 2. Overall, I would give The Great Hunt 5 out of 5 bookmarks, and I can't wait to get started on book 3. The second book I read in November was The Wizard of Earthsea, published in 1968. This is the first book I've read from Ursula K. Le Guin. It's basically about a young boy named Sparrowhawk who discovers he has some magical powers. A mage named Ogion takes him under his wing as an apprentice, and there's actually a scene in the story that reminds me of the Sorcerer's Apprentice segment in Fantasia with Mickey Mouse. You'll know if you read the book. Impatient with Ogion's slow training process, Sparrowhawk decides to leave and joins a wizard school and comes in with a bit of a chip on his shoulder. He ends up getting into a scuffle with another student and carelessly draws a magic spell that unleashes a dark creature that stalks him throughout the story. Sparrowhawk is similar to the Wheel of Time's Rand in that he's a flawed hero, and like the Wheel of Time, there's a running theme of our heroes running from their fears and learning how to face them. The Wizard of Earthsea is also notable for having dark-skinned, non-Caucasian characters, which was unheard of in fantasy novels of that time. The book was written for younger readers, but Ursula K. Le Guin's writing style and layered themes were deep enough to be enjoyed by adults. I really loved her writing style and prose, and found it efficient that she was able to vividly build a world and craft a simple but yet complex story in under 200 pages. Overall, this book was a nice, short, cozy read that I finished in about 2 days. It felt more like a folktale than a large-scale fantasy, so it was a nice change of pace. And I look forward to reading more works from Ursula K. Guin. I would give The Wizard of Earthsea 4 out of 5 bookmarks. The third book I read in November was The Lost Stradivarius by John Mead Faulkner. Now, what's a Lost Stradivarius? Well, according to Wikipedia, a Stradivarius is one of the violins, violas, cellos, and other string instruments built by members of the Italian family Stradivari, particularly Antonio Stradivari, during the 17th and 18th centuries. They are considered some of the finest instruments ever made and are extremely valuable collector's items. Published in 1895, The story centers around a college student and gifted violinist named John. Now, whenever he plays an Italian tune called a Gagliarda, some kind of strange spirit seems to materialize in his room. Later in the same room, he discovers a Stradivarius violin hiding in the wall. He quickly becomes obsessed with the violin to the point where it eventually corrupts his soul. It kind of reminds me of how the ring consumed Gollum in Lord of the Rings. It makes me wonder if J.R.R. Tolkien took some influence from this book. Overall, I found this book to be a good palate cleanser after reading something heavy and epic like The Great Hunt. I finished it in 2 days and found it to be a pretty good fall read. I give The Lost Stradivarius 3 out of 5 bookmarks. And that's all I got for my November wrap-up. How did you guys do? Let me know down in the comments. And of course, as always, hit that like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next page.